Good morning, my name is Evelyn Wong. This is my discourse analysis assignment 3. So in this video, I will talk about my assignment 1, which is regarding the blog analysis I have done. So firstly, I would like to talk about the blog itself. It is named Suicide Corner and it is written by a part-time English language teacher at the Language Center in Sungai Petani under the alias of Kopitiam English. So he is also a part-time tutor for English and Malay subjects. All his blog entries are related to the increase of suicide cases in Malaysia. For his first blog entry, he writes about the suicide rate in Malaysia, whereby he refers to the National Suicide Registry Malaysia (NSRM) for the estimated number of people who have committed suicide in 2010 and 2011. For his second blog entry, it is about the global suicide rate. So he refers to the World Health Organization, or more known as WHO, for the report regarding the number of people who die from suicide. In his third entries, he writes about why people attempt suicide. He provides reasons given by the medical experts, psychologists, and also counselors. The reasons people attempt suicide are such as depression, religious cults, study pressure, love triangle, bullying, family history, and more. And for his fourth blog entry, he writes about suicide deaths in Malaysia. All the cases, he provided 20 cases which happened in Malaysia. And for the fifth entry, he writes about a suicide factor, whether it is caused by EI or IQ. So EI is emotional intelligence, while IQ is intelligence quotient. So according to him, he thinks that person with a higher EI will not commit suicide. The tendency to commit suicide will not be higher than those who have a lower emotional intelligence, or short for EI. So there are 4 tools and 7 reading tasks as suggested by G to analyze the blog entries. So the 4 tools are conversation, social languages, intertextuality, and of course the discourses. Whereas for the 7 reading tasks, there are significance, practices, identities, relationships, politics, connections, science system, and knowledge. So I'll be talking about conversation first. It is one of the tools used by G to analyze the blog entries. So conversation is general knowledge which is related to our framework, and we usually use the general knowledge, the thing in framework, to interpret the meaning of the language used by a person. So for significance, which is one of the reading tasks, it is a text used to make people or things more or less significant. So if you use the word and it is repeated, or the phrases which are repeated and they belong to the same semantic family, it will show the significance. For example, in the blog analysis I did, so the words for significance are such as suicide, death, attempt, hang, while for the phrases will be committed suicide, take his or her own life, and suicide attempt. So all these words and phrases, they show the significance of the issue of suicide, and they also show the seriousness of the suicide cases. And according to the blogger himself, he thinks that most people commit suicide because they are unable to cope with the problems in their lives, and thus they seek the fastest way to get rid of the problem, which is by suicide. So they think that they can solve the problem by committing suicide and the problem will not be there anymore. Okay, whereas for the second building tasks I'll be using will be connections. It is used to note the relevance or irrelevance between two things. So connections are used to disconnect those which are irrelevant, whereas it is used to connect the actions, meanings or words to create relevance. Okay, so the blogger himself, he connects all the blog entries about suicide by referring to firstly the statistics of suicide in both Malaysia and globally. So from my excerpt in the blog, firstly, it says that the rate of people committing suicide has increased to 60% over the decades worldwide. Whereas for the excerpt 2, this phenomena is sweeping through both developed and developing countries. So these are examples of the blogger. He uses the statistics of suicide in both Malaysia and globally to connect them. Okay, for the second examples, he gives factors which contribute to the increase of suicide rate. So in the excerpt from the blog, he says that over the years, medical experts, psychologists, counselors, etc. have come up with a list of general reasons as to why people attempt suicide. So this actually connects the entries the blogger written about suicide. And then thirdly, the blogger himself gives real life suicide cases mentioned in mentioned previously. I have said that the fourth blog entry is about the suicide deaths in Malaysia, which are the 20 cases, 20 real life cases happens in Malaysia. And then whereas for the last one, he makes reference to the news article. As seen from one of the excerpt in the blog, which is written in 2012, according to WHO report, almost 1 million of people die from suicide globally, which is 16 per 100,000, equivalent to one death in 45 seconds. Whereas there is an article I found online, it is written in 2014. It is also reported by WHO. It finds that suicide kills one person worldwide every 40 seconds. So in relevance is both the report, the difference between them by 2 years, and the death is actually increasing, because in 2012 we consider that there are a death in 45 seconds, whereas in 2014 there are death in every 40 seconds. So we can see that the frequency of death has increased in regarding to the seconds. So by making the connections, the bloggers actually convince the readers because of all the facts he has given. And by conclusion, I think that the blogger uses the blog entries to tell us the statistics of suicide rates, the causes, and he gives real life cases to inform us about the severity of the suicide. So that's all from me. Thank you.